This morning I woke up and I got an email from a old acquaintance, a very trustworthy guy, and he was sending me links to certain documentations that seemed to indicate that there was going to be some sort of bio attack in western Ukraine, and that it was going to be blamed on the Russians. Now, ordinarily, this one incident, I would have been like, "Well, that's very interesting," and I kind of would have shrugged it off. But the thing is, see, I've heard from different sources, two other sources, something similar. Not quite pinpointing the location, but the fact that there was going to be some sort of bioweapons attack in Ukraine and that it was going to be blamed on the Russians and that it was going to be used as the justification for something. What that something was is not clear. But a fourth source, and this is circulated widely, a fourth source produced a letter that was sent from the Zelensky regime in Kiev to the Lviv border authority, telling them that between May 22nd and May 24th, Polish soldiers were going to come into western Ukraine and that the border guards in Ukraine should allow them to enter with all of their military equipment and whatnot, and that these Polish soldiers were going to be acting as quote-unquote peacekeepers. This is all very interesting. Now, in a situation as fluid as this special military operation here in Ukraine, you kind of like have to pay attention to everything, even as you don't quite buy anything. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm telling you this because it could turn out that May 22nd through the 24th comes and goes and nothing happens, and that there is no bioweapon attack, nothing happens at all. It could be that. Or it could be that, everything that I'm saying in this video is completely prescient. But that's the problem that you have in war, especially a war. This is the first major war, major conflict, where there are so many people plugged in online and so much information is just pouring out, spewing out. And so much of this information is so much bullshit. And sometimes the bullshit that gets spewed out later turns out to be true. And sometimes the bullshit that comes out has so much information and so many letters and data and this and that and maps and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out to be all lies, all fiction. The information that I've heard and the information that I've seen, it could be genuine or it could be some crazy kid bored with nothing better to do. He's 15, 16 years old. And maybe because of circumstances of his upbringing, he speaks Russian and English, and he writes up a bunch of stuff. That's all bullshit, but very credible bullshit, Kind of like the stuff that a really, really good art director on a movie would have come up with, And if the kid is the one who did all this stuff, I suggest you go to Hollywood and get a job in the art department. But anyway, the serious point, is that, see, you don't know if any of this is true or false. And you can't know until after the fact. So what you have to do is not hang your hat on any bit of information or any particular scenario. What you have to do is look at all the scenarios and assume, they could all be true or none of them be true. Even the scenarios that seem very, very credible and very, very likely, you should take them like with a grain of salt. And the ones that seem just outlandish, impossible, I mean, come on, man. Aliens are going to show up the day after tomorrow and they're going to enforce a peace by way of their alien weaponry. That's not possible. That's absolutely off the wall. But even that absurdity, you have to just keep it there. Keep it there on the burner. Imagine the whole thing is like a stove. And you have like a lot of pots and a lot of heating pads, right? And so you have to put all your pots on and just keep an eye on all of them without committing to any of them. Now, I don't know if this metaphor really works, but I think that you get the picture. See, no matter how absurd on the one hand, or no matter how credible on the other hand, you have to keep a healthy skepticism about all of the possible stories. Because, like I said, they could all be true or they could all be false. And it could be something completely different. You see? And so I'm passing along this story that several credible sources are claiming that there is going to be some bioattack and that it's going to be in western Ukraine, and it will be used as the justification for the Poles to enter as a quote-unquote peacekeeping force. Right now, that's the rumor. And it's coming from several sources. But there are a whole bunch of other rumors that are going on too at the same time. And they could be true too, or they could be false too. And so you see the delicate balance that you have to be doing. You have to sort of like listen, nod, examine the evidence, see if it's credible or not. And even if it's extremely credible, just sort of like withhold judgment. Just think that maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not. I've noticed that a lot of commentators sort of like burn themselves by committing whole hog to one piece of information or one possible scenario because the information, the evidence seems so compelling. And then later it turns out to be just totally wrong, totally bullshit. See? And so never, in this situation, it's not that you don't commit to anything. You don't think of it as an issue of committing to one version or another. Just keep your options open. And never, like I said, never hang your hat on any one thing. Because it could be completely right or completely wrong, and you're only going to know after the fact.